Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Zone Blitz. I'm Vince Miller, as always, joined by my co-host Ashton Overhaul, and we're here to preview Week 12. Somehow it's Week 12 already. Also, it's been a long season. I know I keep saying that. Week 12 to me sounds crazy, but then I think back to the beginning weeks, and it's like, wow, that was ages ago. So it makes sense that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
So let's just dive right into this, and I should say we are recording this as the playoff rankings come out, so
That's right.
we might react live, we might react at the end, we'll see. But anyway.
Yep.
We'll start off Michigan State at Ohio State. This is probably the biggest game of the day.
For sure.
This is big. Like, this is really big. This is for, excuse me. This is for the Big Ten East, and by extension, the Big Ten and the playoff. Like, this is kind of for all of this stuff. Ohio State is a 19-point favorite.
Yes.
Now, we did see them just like absolutely put up all the points they wanted against Purdue.
Yeah.
But like we said in our last episode, Purdue does not have a good defense. That being said, like, this Ohio State offense is clicking. Like, do you think they could actually cover this?
Well, okay. I think what people are like, I think what Vegas is seeing is Michigan State's total lack of pass defense. Like, Michigan State doesn't seem to be able to stop the pass. So, and obviously that's what Ohio State does best. You know, like they're going to come out with a bunch of NFL receivers and a really good quarterback and spread you out and chuck it all over the field. So that's probably the reason. I think this is maybe a little bit of overreaction from the Purdue win. Like, yes, it was really good, but Michigan State can also put up points. Like, let's not forget who they have. Like, Peyton Thorne's had a really good year, and Kenneth Walker's been a beast and is a Heisman front runner right now, or one of them. So, like, yeah, I'm just, Michigan State really runs the ball well, and Ohio State kind of struggles to stop the run. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I understand where they're at. Like, I think I would lean to a little bit closer game than what everyone else would think.
Sure. I do think, like, there is Michigan State has beaten Ohio State a few times in the last decade. It hasn't happened since 2015.
Right.
But I do think, like, there's a chance here. I'm definitely far from predicting it. Like, I do think Ohio State will win this game, but that spread looks a little bit large to me in my mind.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if, I don't know. There are people that when they see a spread that big that it's suspicious, that they actually bet that side of it. Like for us, like, we're like, well, Michigan State can surely cover 19, right? But like, there is a certain like the sharps, like the sharps element that are like, no, like, we're actually going to we're going to even go even farther on that because, like, we're seeing something here that no one else is seeing. So like, I mean, like, that is a play. Like, I mean, granted, I'm still on the Michigan State side. Like, I don't think Ohio State can really stop the run that well. And I think if anyone has a really good chance of slowing down this Ohio State offense in the regular season, it's going to be Michigan or Michigan State, because Mel Tucker, like, I understand maybe they don't have the personnel, but Mel Tucker he's a really good defensive mind. He really is. And like this, they've been pointing to this game for a while. And one thing we will say, the look ahead games, like it kind of felt like maybe Michigan State kind of looked through Purdue and maybe to a certain point Maryland last week. But that usually does mean that they are coming for the team that they're preparing for. You know what I'm saying? Like, we saw that with Baylor versus TCU, then last week against Oklahoma. So at least when someone has they've kind of had like a look ahead game, at least that means they're prepared for the game that they're looking ahead to. So I don't know. Like, I think it'll be a good game. I think this one could be close. I think the one next week against Michigan will also be close. I would lean Ohio State to win. Probably Michigan State to cover is my feel right now. Kind of like, just kind of off the cuff. I don't know if I haven't decided on my locks yet. This is for sure going to be one of the 5 to watch, obviously. I haven't figured out my locks. So, like, coming in with no preparation at all. Is this one of yours? This is going to be one of yours, isn't it?
This is one of my locks of the week. I'm going Michigan State.
I figured.
And I could very easily see Ohio State covering.
Right.
But I just feel like, Ohio State beat Purdue by a lot last week. Michigan State is better than Purdue, especially defensively.
Yes.
Even though the pass defense has not been great.
Right.
I do expect them to show up a little better. And also, Purdue is the kind of explosive offense. They're either going to score quickly or they're going to punt quickly. And so Ohio State got a lot of possessions in that game.
Yeah.
I do think they're going to get fewer possessions against Michigan State because Michigan State can run the ball. Obviously, we know Kenneth Walker.
Right. Sure.
And while I do think it's a bit of an overrated thing, like keep the ball away from the other team, play, go for all these 8-minute drives, and I don't think that's what Michigan State is necessarily going to do. But I do think it could mean that a solid Ohio State win, which is what I expect, would be more in the winning by 14-17 range
Yes.
instead of 3
Correct.
touchdowns. Like just
Agreed.
because, Ohio State by 14 feels about right to me. I think Michigan State, they're not as good as Ohio State, and they're probably not quite even. They're not even really that close.
Right.
But 19 points is a lot, and I do think Michigan State is good enough that they can cover that. So they're one of my locks of the week.
Yeah, no issue with it. I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm still waffling on it. By the way,
Sure.
Wake Forest in the top 10 again.
Yeah.
We've seen that. And hey, Oklahoma has dropped down to 13.
Yes.
Only one loss. And then you see like Ole Miss with 2 losses is now ahead of them at 12. Any thought there just like on Oklahoma dropping down so far? That's a bit of that's a 5 spot to a loss to a good team. Like Baylor's good.
Mm-hmm.
Is that appropriate, do you think?
I'm fine with it, just because they haven't really shown out yet this year. But now they play a decent Iowa State team. Then they have Bedlam, where they play Oklahoma State, who's ranked number 9.
Yeah.
And then a Big 12 title game. It's still like they still have time to make a statement. I don't know if it'll be enough.
Right.
But if they dominate Iowa State, Oklahoma State, who's a top 10 team, like they can still they're the top part of their resume where they have a bunch of good wins, like that part is not filled in yet.
Right.
And they can still fill that in and,
Right.
and put themselves in the discussion, at least, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. I would agree. I think Wake Forest at 10 feels a little bit scammy. Like it feels like a scam a little bit. Like okay, like they have Clemson this week, right? Like I'm not a Wake Forest believer in them being there as far as just quality of football teams. I think they would lose to most of the rest of the top 15. Like I think that like the teams they're ranked 10. I think they would lose to teams 11, 12, or really 11 through 15. I think they would lose to probably all of those teams. And I mean, I guess you do get to kind of see, but they're not really going to play anyone else. Like they do have Clemson yet, but like it's not like they're going to have a big ranked matchup to where they're going to have to prove themselves.
Well, they also have NC State after them.
Yes, right. No, yes, NC State is ranked lower than them, obviously.
Right. I do. Well, let's just get right into that game. Wake Forest is at Clemson. Clemson's a 4 to 4.5 point favorite.
Right.
So I do think because Wake does finish with Clemson and NC State, neither of whom are incredible, but like 2 good teams.
They finished with Boston College. They had NC State last week. Yeah, they played.
They just beat NC State. I'm sorry.
They just beat NC State by 3.
Maybe that's why they're 10, because the community does value that win, because that is a decent win.
Okay, it's decent. Yeah,
I do think that if they finish with wins over Clemson and Boston College, who has Dracovic back and is now a decent team again.
Yeah, they are.
Like,
that's correct.
If there's lots and lots of chaos, like they have a chance. Like there's still an outside chance with lots and lots of chaos.
Right.
I guess is what that tells me, because they're ranked number 10. But getting into this game, Wake Forest at Clemson, do you agree with the idea that Clemson is a 4 to 4.5 point favorite here? It kind of makes sense, not?
It does. It does. Okay, so obviously, like the more talented team is Clemson, right? Like, I mean, I think we can agree on that. The more talented quarterback, that's arguable. Like, I would say Sam Hartman is for sure playing better this year. Wouldn't say that. Okay, coaching, yeah. So quarterback, you're going to go with Wake Forest. Coaching, are you really going to say that the coaching staff of Clemson, who has severely let their team down this year, is going to out-coach like what has been a phenomenal job at Wake Forest? Like, I would give the coaching advantage to Wake Forest this year. Maybe not every year, but this year in particular. I'd say at weapons, like Clemson's decimated in their weapons. Like as far as just offensive skill players that we're used to seeing them have. Yeah, it hasn't been great. Shipley's been okay, and like Ross has been disappointing. Like we'll say he's been disappointing.
Yeah.
He's not what we thought he was. So yeah. Hey, by the way, Oregon stays at 3. I think that's big. Oregon not dropping behind Ohio. There was talk that maybe Ohio State would jump Oregon this week. Not to get
Right.
off topic, but this line stinks for me, by the way. Like Clemson being favored by 4 points. It is home. It's a home game for Clemson. But like, is this your lock? This is another one. Be another one of your locks, isn't it?
This is not one of my locks. To me, this is a stay away. But
Right.
I mean, I
Okay.
wouldn't. I could. It's just too easy for me to see either side of this playing out. You know what I'm saying? Like I could so easily see Clemson winning by a field goal and being
Right.
like, "Well, yeah, duh. Of course, Wake Forest was going to hang with them. Wake Forest is really good." I could
Yeah.
also see Clemson beating them by 10 and being, "Well, duh. Clemson is way more talented than Wake Forest. Why didn't I see that coming?" You know what I'm saying? Like I could very
Right.
easily see myself being wrong on that one, no matter which way I took.
Right.
But
Yeah.
maybe you have a
I'm
leaning
same.
on this. Do you have a leaning on this?
I mean, I would probably lean Wake Forest to cover 4.
Yeah.
I would, that would be my lean. I have not made my picks. I mean, you're for sure getting the better quarterback play, and you're going to get probably a better coached team this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds blasphemous. I understand how it sounds, but you can't argue that there's been a clear, just kind of, just kind of an erosion really of offensive scheme from Clemson. Like it's not
Yeah.
there's no creativity really anymore on offense. And Wake can score points. Wake can score points. So and hey, good matchup. Really good defense against a really good offense. It'll be fun and a game that you have to watch. It'll be in that noon window, which is loaded. A really good noon slot this week.
Right.
We've had a lot of really good noon games. I think it's been fun.
Mm-hmm. If Clemson was named Virginia Tech,
the line would be flipped. The line
this would be so clear, and based on this season, it would just make so much sense to bet on Wake Forest here. So I don't hate your lean at all.
Right.
It's kind of terrifying to bet on Wake Forest, the name.
I've been burned by Clemson though. Like
against
I thought
Clemson.
Like I've been burned by him. Like I thought that Clemson would come out and lay it to Pitt. Like I really did. That was a game they really needed to have. And it's like they're more talented than Pittsburgh. And like you realize like no, like this is who they are. Like they are what they are at this point. And so I'm cautious. I'm really cautious to just continue to pour it on Clemson, who's, by the way, Clemson is not good against the spread. Like, let's not forget, Clemson is not very good against the spread this year at all. So, for all of those reasons, it's very tough for me to continue to bet on Clemson.
Yeah. Okay. Another ACC matchup. This is nothing super interesting on the national scale, but if you want to watch a game that could be entertaining, could be just fun to watch, Florida State is at Boston College. I mention it mostly because Boston College has Phil Dracovic back.
Right.
Florida State is playing for bowl eligibility these last 2 games. Like it's been rough going, but they're trending up. They're fighting. We talked about that in our last episode.
Right.
We also like Boston College quite a bit. So this could just be kind of a fun game to watch. No big stakes really, other than, obviously Florida State wants to make a bowl game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We should just mention quickly, Cincinnati stays at 5.
Yes.
Ahead of the Michigan schools. There was maybe a little bit of worry that the Michigan schools would jump them, or at least one of them maybe, but I mean, we both just predicted yesterday that Cincinnati will make the playoff.
We did. Yeah, we did.
It feels a little better seeing them stay at 5 and not get jumped by anybody.
And Houston getting into the top 25 matters.
Sure.
I think that matters in the minds of the committee members. They're setting you up for, like, they had them dropped out, and there was no real reason to have Houston dropped out of the top 25 in like the initial CFP rankings. So to see them get back in is big. And I think that kind of shows you maybe where the mindset of the committee is, to give Cincinnati maybe one more quality win, possibly, potentially. Right. Yeah.
Okay, Iowa State is at Oklahoma. We just talked about Oklahoma dropping to 13.
Yes.
They are 3.5 to 4 point favorite against Iowa State.
Yep.
And they really have no choice. Like, they have to be impressive in this game. But I mean, this is last year they lost to Iowa State in the regular season. Do you think it could happen again? I mean, obviously it could happen again. What do you expect to happen? Do you feel like Oklahoma, maybe the loss wakes them up a little bit, or is this just, or was it just a sign that they're not that good and they could very legitimately lose this game.
I would say it's a sign they're not that good and could easily lose this game. I mean, we've seen Coach Campbell really do a number on Oklahoma in years past, right? Like he's had a lot of success against Lincoln Riley, as much as anyone has, including Dave Aranda. Like both of those guys really coach against Oklahoma very well when they play him. So like I would be very concerned, like as an Oklahoma fan, just about this, because Iowa State's always kind of just like sitting there in the weeds, and like every time you think like we need to watch out for them, well then they lose a couple games and get right back in the weeds again, and they come and get teams. They really do. They come beat teams that are probably more talented than them. So like I'd be concerned. I know it's a home game for Oklahoma. I understand that. I would be concerned because I've seen it happen before. Like this has happened. We have precedent here, and. Yeah, let's just say the Oklahoma quarterback situation has not given me much to feel good about in the last week or so.
Which feels crazy to say, just based on the talent they've brought in.
If Oklahoma could get a good quarterback, it feels like they have a real chance.
They could recruit a 5-star. Oh, wait.
Right.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, let's move on. SMU at Cincinnati. We just talked about them, about Cincinnati a little bit. This was expected to be a huge matchup. Yeah. Still is big because I think SMU is a solid team. Like they have put up points this year.
Right.
This is an opportunity for Cincinnati. Some people thought maybe the USF game would be a little bit of a trap for them. Mm-hmm. And they actually played pretty well that game, kind of dominated it. The final score was closer than the game was. Yep. So maybe Cincinnati's picking it up a little bit more. And to me, like if they really dominate SMU here, that would go a long way, I think, in the committee's eyes. Because I do think they need to pass the eye test probably more than most Power 5 teams do.
Yeah, no, like I would agree. I think the more important thing is Houston continuing to win games. Houston plays at Memphis, right? And like Cincy really needs Houston to go and win out. Like it really hurt them when SMU dropped those 2 games in the middle of the year, because this was billed as like their other big regular season game, right? Like this was going to be, and it was going to be a ranked on ranked matchup. I think SMU got as high as 19 before they lost, and obviously now not ranked. But so like for Cincinnati, yes, you do want to win. You want to win impressively, but at this point, you just take the win and you hope that Houston continues to rise. Like that's kind of your hope there, and that some chaos happens up ahead of you, which will probably happen. Like it's very unlikely that all of these schools just win out. You know what I'm saying? Like that are ahead of them. So like there's gonna be some losses still. There has to be. Like Georgia and Alabama are gonna play each other. The Michigan schools both have to play Ohio State and have a chance at beating them. So Oregon, like we think Oregon can lose. We've stated that Oregon has to beat Utah twice, and a sneaky good Oregon State team sandwiched in there probably. So for Cincinnati, just win. Like I think a win's a win, and hope that Houston continues to rise, I think is your viewpoint there.
Right. I do think when the initial rankings came out, I at least was a little surprised at how low Cincinnati was. Yeah. I wonder if maybe the committee, like when they look at the strength of schedule, it almost feels like they're already at that point looking at the entire season.
Yeah.
And not adjusting it week to week. In my mind, I would look at what has been their strength of schedule up to that point, because at that point they had already beaten Notre Dame, and they had probably the second best win of the top 10 teams.
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe the committee wasn't already taking the entire season's strength of schedule into account, which would be why we're not seeing them get jumped right now, because they're already slotted in maybe about where they belong. I don't know. Just a theory I had. I don't know if that's actually what's happening or not, but it is encouraging to me to see Cincinnati staying at 5, not getting passed by anybody. Right. And I think you're right. Like I do think if they win out, I'm pretty sure they're going to be in.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I agree. I think so too. Is this one of your top 5 games to watch? SMU versus Cincinnati?
It is not. It did not make my cut, but
no,
it was definitely close.
Right.
Just for reference sake, according to 538, if Cincinnati wins out, they have a 68% chance of making the playoff.
I'm telling you, they have a really good chance. People are despairing and saying that they have no shot. Like, I think they're going to be just fine if they win out, especially if them and Houston wins out, then I feel really good. I feel really good because you'd have to beat Houston.
according to the ESPN college football playoff predictor, they'd have an 84% chance if they went out. So
Right.
even a little
Right.
better. So yeah, I think I'm leaning that way too. And we both had them as our 3 seed in our prediction. So
Right. Yeah.
and we both think Oregon's going to lose, so that would be part of it. But
That's right.
yeah, I
That's
think
right.
things are looking pretty good for Cincinnati.
Agree. 100%.
Okay, Virginia at Pitt.
Mm.
This is essentially for the division title in the ACC,
Mm-hmm.
and now the winner would still have to win again, or at least Virginia would if they win this game. The issue, of course, is Brennan Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
We just saw Virginia play without him against Notre Dame, and it was ugly. They lost 28-3, and it was not that close.
Right.
Pitt has been a pretty feisty team. They're a 14.5-point favorite right here, which is obviously taking into account the fact that Virginia's without their quarterback. I haven't heard anything if he's going to play, but I'm not hopeful. I'm not super hopeful for Virginia, and I don't think he'll be 100% if he does play. Do you think they can find some magic here, or do you just trust Pitt to roll here?
Pitt will roll here. Yeah, I'm not been overly impressed with Virginia at all. In the granted, the limited games that I've seen that I watched them play, I watched them go play against BYU, who's a pretty good team, and they kept it close. That was with Armstrong playing. Yeah, and then obviously they looked very bad last week against Notre Dame without Brennan Armstrong. So I think Kenny Pickett is the problem. I would say Kenny Pickett or Sam Hartman. One of those two are the best quarterback in the ACC this year. So yeah, and you're
Over
going
Sam
up against
Howell.
that. Well, shoot. And
There's
like
a lot of good quarterbacks in the ACC.
Devin Leary doesn't
Devin
even take
Leary.
a backseat to anyone either. And
Yeah.
you're right. Sam Howell is the wow. Yeah,
It's hard.
I'd go
It's
Sam
tough.
Howell. I'd go Sam Howell at 1, probably Pickett 2, Hartman 3. I think.
And then you still got Brennan Armstrong.
Yeah, I know. Who's only put up probably the best numbers of anyone when
Man.
he's healthy, right? So.
Yeah.
And DJ's at 5 or 6. That's crazy. DJ is 6th best quarterback in
Yeah.
the ACC.
So I have this as one of my 5, partially
Okay.
because if Brennan Armstrong does play, like suddenly it becomes very interesting.
Yep.
And it's for a division title in an ACC that can be won. Like you'll probably have Wake Forest coming out the other side. So like any one of these teams could win the ACC, which would, if not making the playoff, would mean a New Year's Six Bowl, which would be very big, I think, for any of these programs.
Sure.
And I actually do have Pitt at -14.5 as my second lock of the week.
Okay. Yeah.
Just based on the way Virginia looked without Brennan Armstrong. They lost to Notre Dame by 25, and it probably should have been more like 35 or 42 or whatever. Like, yeah, Notre Dame left a lot of points in the field, and they weren't playing with any urgency after like the first 4 drives either. So,
Right.
and Pitt has every reason to lay the hammer down and try to make sure they win this game, win the division. I expect Pitt to cover this just because even if Armstrong plays, I don't think he'll be himself.
Agreed. Yes, sir.
Okay, Arkansas is at Alabama. Alabama, the 3-touchdown favorite here. Arkansas, we talked about it. Like, it's already set in stone. They already had an incredible season. If they lose out, it was still an incredible season.
Right.
Is there any reason to think that they can scare Alabama? Can KJ Jefferson be Cam Newton in this situation, or that's asking a lot? I mean, I realize that, but
There's a chance they could. There's a real chance that they could scare Alabama. The line right now is 20.5 for Alabama. Will be one of my locks of the week.
all right.
I will have Arkansas covering 20.5 at Alabama. Sam Pittman is notoriously good against the spread in his tenure so far. He's very undervalued and has really made people a lot of money if you bet on him repeatedly. So I will be riding that train. I think the defense, for me, it's the defense of Arkansas that's been impressive most of the time. Not against Ole Miss. We did not see the impressive defense against Ole Miss, but like they have done a good job at like they have some pass rushers too, and like I don't think that Alabama will be able to run the ball against them, and they will become one-dimensional. I think when any team becomes one-dimensional, they become easier to stop. So. Yeah, like I think I'm not Alabama. I mean, yeah, Alabama's going to win. I think Arkansas will cover though.
By the way, you said 20 and a half. You can still get it at 21 in some places. So
Give me that, please.
even better.
Please. So
That's
much
actually kind of
better.
a big deal. That's a
That's
kind of
a
a big number.
that is a big one.
Yeah. Okay, Virginia Tech is at Miami. I mentioned this partially because Justin Fuente just got fired by Virginia Tech after 7 years there or something.
Yeah.
Just never could quite put it all together. Miami's a 7.5 point favorite after just losing to Florida State, who played well in that game.
Mhm.
So I guess there's not maybe a ton to learn here from this game, but maybe just focusing more on Fuente. Are there any names you really like for the Virginia Tech job, or do you feel like this was a smart decision to fire Fuente at this point? There's a lot of jobs opening up.
There is, and I think maybe that's why, like, they want to get a head start. I would say you go after Shane Beamer, possibly at South Carolina, since
Interesting.
we have some Beamer blood
Yes.
already there. I don't think he'd take it. Like, I think South Carolina is every bit as good of a job as Virginia Tech, and you have a really good thing going. Like, it's been a successful first year for Shane Beamer there. So after that, like after you get past that, I heard possible like Mike Elko possibly rumored, just
Right.
kind of thrown in the mix. There's a number of names. There's going to be a lot of really good jobs available this year. I don't know if anyone's been watching, but they're going to continue to open up. We expect Florida to still open up as they get rid of Mullen. So yeah, Washington opened up obviously with Jimmy Lake, the departure of Jimmy Lake. So like there's some good gigs out there and something to be watching here in the next couple of weeks.
It's very interesting because they're LSU, USC, assume Florida, Washington, Virginia Tech. Like those are 5 pretty big brands. Like we're gonna have to. Somebody's gonna lose a coach they didn't want to lose.
True.
Okay, let's move on. Oregon at Utah. This is kind of the big game of the evening slate. Utah is actually a 3 point favorite here, and this would be a big deal. Oregon is the Pac-12's last chance to make the playoff, and they have to win out, which means we've already said it. They have to beat Utah here, Oregon State next week, and then most likely Utah again in the Pac-12 championship game.
All right.
Does it make sense to you that Utah is favored?
So we both think that Oregon will lose one of their next 3 games, right? Like that's me and you both think that. And this is a home game for Utah. Like this would this is probably the best chance that they get gotten. The problem is that Vegas also thinks that this is true.
Exactly.
So
I would almost like Utah more here if they were not favored.
For sure. Like there's a much better chance that Utah would win if they were like 4-point underdogs.
Just feels that way, yeah.
Right. So this I can't go on it right now. I'm not going to bet on it just because I mean you can win by a field goal and still push. So
right.
It just I'm good. I think there's some other value some other places, but this is for sure one that I could easily see Oregon losing. Would not surprise me at all. I just not willing to bet on this particular game, I think.
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. It feels, the line feels scary to me, one way or another.
It is.
Okay, Oklahoma State is at Texas Tech. I mentioned this. Texas Tech just beat Iowa State last week, and Oklahoma State, we just saw, like they're ranked 9.
Right.
They're in a situation where they have to make some statements, and they have Oklahoma next week. So this is definitely a potential look-ahead spot for them.
Mm-hmm.
This would be a pretty crippling blow, I think, for the Big 12 if Texas Tech would somehow pull this one out.
Massive. Yes, that would hurt tremendously, and then especially if Oklahoma State would then go and beat Oklahoma, which
for sure
possibly could happen, and then you have no chance of getting in. No, they need Oklahoma State. They need that last game to matter a ton, and for the winner of that game to go ahead and win the Big 12 championship in their next game, which kind of doubt that both of those will happen, but we shall see.
Oklahoma State is a 10 to 10.5 point favorite. I don't have this as one of my 5 to watch. I think my lean would just be Oklahoma State, just because they feel like they're kind of kicking into gear right now. The one thing that would worry me is the look-ahead spot.
Agreed.
And by the way, of all the games we've previewed so far, this is the first one where the road team is favored. So
yeah, right.
It's I don't know. That maybe is just an interesting note to nobody but me, but something to keep in mind as you're watching football Saturday. There's a lot of home favorites, and maybe it's possible that Vegas is favoring some teams that by more than they should because they're at home. So we'll see.
Agreed. Sure.
Okay, so you mentioned Arkansas is one of your locks at plus 21.
Yes.
You have your second one figured out yet?
So, and I'm conflicted on this one. So, let's just go through the five that we want to watch.
Yes.
Why don't you go first, and then I'll go second?
Okay, so my 5 are Michigan State at Ohio State. That's the easy one for me.
Sure.
I have Wake Forest at Clemson.
Yep.
Iowa State at Oklahoma. I have Virginia at Pitt and Oregon at Utah. My locks are Pitt minus 14.5 and Michigan State plus 19.
I'm so close to getting on the Michigan State plus 19. That's just, it feels so big. Especially, I can see that game going especially Michigan State gets the ball early. They go run, run, run. And suddenly they're down inside the 10-yard line. And they've taken the ball, one possession, they're inside the 10-yard line. And there's, 8.5 minutes left in the first quarter. I could so easily see that happen, in which case you're feeling really good about it. Not only going to score, but they're taking chunks of time off and keeping Ohio State out of rhythm. I see that whole game script working out for Michigan State. I could see that happening, but if they get stoned on an early first or second down run, then you're playing from behind. Then the game speeds up, and that is all to Ohio State's. That's exactly what Ohio State is praying for. So
yeah.
Then you're not feeling good at all about 19.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
It could go south so quickly.
So fast. Okay, so Arkansas minus 21, Arkansas plus 21.
Plus 21, yep.
Yes, Arkansas plus 21 will be one of mine. That is obviously going to be one of my games to watch. Michigan State, Ohio State, that's the easy one. That's number 2 in the games to watch. Wake Forest, Clemson. I think it's going to be just really interesting to see Clemson play another really good ACC team. Those have been good games. The ACC has maybe not had great teams, but they've given us really good, entertaining football games. There's been a ton of really good games in the ACC this year. I think this one could be another one, and a really good reason to watch. That's number 3. So Oregon versus Utah is number 4, and then we go to the game number 5 for me this week. And this was a tough one for me. I was waffling between SMU and Cincinnati, which I think would be really entertaining. Just from a playoff perspective, I think that one's interesting and worth your while. Memphis versus Houston on a Friday night. I know we didn't do any preview of this at all, but this game really matters. It's on ESPN, and Memphis isn't bad. They beat Mississippi State earlier this year, right, in a home game, and Mississippi State's a top 25 team now. And Houston, Cincinnati needs Houston to win. I think that game really matters. That sneaky matters. I couldn't go in on it just because it's still Houston versus Memphis, so not going to be in the top 5. But I was really close. In the end, I'm going to end up watching Oklahoma versus Iowa State, simply because it's Oklahoma again, and it's given us a history of really good football games. These programs have given us a history of really good football games. Has some playoff implications still, even though I just don't see Oklahoma still getting in at all. The possibility that they could is still worth watching for me. So those are my 5.
Okay, and what about your locks? You have Arkansas plus 21. Did you decide on your second one?
Yeah, I want to go with Michigan State.
Michigan State. He's in with me. All right.
Super lock. Hey, we won our super lock last week, didn't we?
Yes, Notre Dame.
Our super locks, when me and you agree, we have a decent record on those. I think,
we have one loss this year. Yep.
Okay. But we've hit 3 times at least.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So be warned, Ohio State.
Yeah. I don't feel good about that one, though. I'll be honest.
No, I don't love it either. I don't.
My confidence is not great. I feel so much better about some other ones.
There were some weeks early this year where I just loved my picks and felt so confident about them. And lately, it's more like, I think this is what's going to happen.
Well, hang on. What about Wake Forest? What about Wake Forest covering 4?
Oh, shoot. I mean, is there a reason to think any ACC team should be favored over any other ACC team right now?
No, there's not. We thought me and you. We thought in our preview pod before the season, our preseason pod, that there was going to be 3 good teams. You remember that there was going to be 3 good teams Clemson, North Carolina, and Miami, and then there's going to be a big drop off, and there's going to be just one big muddle, and no one knows what's going to come from it. Turns out there's just one big muddle, and not three teams that haven't separated themselves. So
Turns out the 3 teams that can actually win the conference are Wake Forest, Virginia, and Pitt.
yeah, or throw NC State in there too, I guess. My goodness, what a year! What a year in the ACC. I'm conflicted on this one. I really am. I'm gonna stick with Michigan State. I'm gonna stick with Michigan State. Yeah, let's go with the Super Lock.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else we should cover? Obviously, we talked a little bit about the playoff rankings.
Yeah.
Not all that terribly important right now, although there are some things to learn. Yeah. Is anything more notable than just like Cincinnati State at 5? And
Cincinnati staying at 5 is the big one. I do kind of wonder why San Diego State's they're at 19. Like what is the committee seen from San Diego State at 19 and not put Houston at 19? Like, why is Houston 24?
Or
you know
UTSA?
What I mean? Or right, exactly. Like
undefeated.
what have they seen from San Diego State that's like, wow, like they're several steps better than some of these other teams that have similar records, right? Like, San Diego State's not undefeated. Well, I know, I understand that. Like, I do, I get it, but they haven't like they're still playing in a similar conference, right? Like, they're not in a major conference, and they do have a loss. Like, San Diego State's not undefeated, and right. UTSA could easily lose this week to UAB, Alabama Birmingham.
Right.
That's a game that UTSA could easily drop. But yeah, like, I think in this, I don't know. It does feel like maybe they're throwing Cincinnati a little bit of a bone by ranking Houston now. I just feel like maybe they should have ranked them at 19. Maybe have them switched. Have San Diego State at what is it, 24, and move Houston up to 19.
Yeah.
Because I think the AAC is a better conference than anything that San Diego State plays in. What are they playing? The WAC? What are they playing in?
San Diego, not even sure.
Yeah, it's like, so it's, yeah, anyway.
San Diego State Conference. Let me just Google that real quick.
Nice. This is terrific.
This is just wonderful podcasting.
It is. We're good at this.
It's almost like we don't already know everything about college football. They play in the Mountain West.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The AAC is a better conference than the Mountain West.
So you would have Houston above San Diego State and UTSA?
Yes. Yes, I would.
I think
yes, I can say that. I mean, okay, so San Diego State's loss was to Fresno State, who's good team, right? Like no disrespect there. But I mean, they beat Hawaii by 7 points. They snuck past Nevada by 2 points last week. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, why are we continuing to keep them up there? I guess is maybe more my thing.
Yeah, I think I would of those 3, I'd probably go UTSA first, just because they're undefeated. But
they beat nobody. We're talking about beating nobody. UTSA is beating nobody. So
yeah, UTEP is actually decent this year.
Well, okay, if we're willing to call that a
anyway. I don't have a major issue with ranking those 3 in any specific order. I think they're all 3 pretty decent.
Right.
They're not Cincinnati when it comes to the G5, but they're in the next tier.
UTSA actually beat Illinois.
Oh yes, I forgot about that.
They beat Memphis as well.
Okay.
So UTSA is actually like sneaky. They beat Louisiana Tech by they blew them out actually by I think 3 or 4 scores. And Louisiana Tech week 1 took Mississippi State down to the wire. Again, Mississippi State's bipolar, and this was a home game for Mississippi State. So yeah, like who knows? But they have UAB and then they finish with North Texas. So UTSA will probably decent chance that they finish undefeated.
Yeah,
and go nowhere in the bowls.
Right. Okay. Well, we only have a couple of regular season weeks left. Yeah. Got to enjoy each one. This is the last week. Excuse me. This is the last one before rivalry week. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's enjoy it.
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Everyone out there have a great week and God bless.